Hello, and this is my review of the brand new 2025 Nissan Juke Hybrid. Hello, welcome back to the interface. My name's Alex, and today we're going to look at the Nissan Juke Hybrid N Sport. Now, the N Sport is a brand new model to the Nissan Juke pretty recently, but this second generation Nissan Juke has been with us for a few years now. Now, for the front design of the Nissan Juke, this second generation looks a lot better than the first one. The first one, which was launched way back in 2010 actually, was quite an ugly looking car really. The headlights are way too large and just didn't quite work on the front. The round indicators were bit too big as well. This new second generation one, which has been with us for a little while now, is a lot better in terms of the design proportions. It just looks a lot better. These headlights are a lot slimmer than before, just takes up less of the bodywork, and the whole front design has been cleaned up and simplified. Looks quite nice. Now, the front design here, the grille, this has got a nice hexagonal pattern to it. Some of it is blanked off, but some of it does have gaps to allow cooling into the engine, and that works pretty well. We also do have the brand new Nissan badge and a front-facing camera for the 360-degree camera system, which is really good. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I really thought the first version of the Nissan Juke was quite an ugly looking car, really. It just didn't work. The whole front was just weird looking. This second generation is thankfully a lot better in a lot of ways. There are a lot of nice design elements going on here. So we have got this big crease which goes all the way back up to the rear light and matches up there, sort of disappears and goes around the circle there. Just adds a little bit of dynamic lookingness to the car. We have also got a lot of black plastic trim here, so this is quite a common thing on crossovers and stuff. There is also a black plastic thing on the door there, which in other SUVs it should protect the bodywork from getting mud on it, which in turn should prevent mud from getting on your trousers. It doesn't do a massively good job. It still gets some mud on the very bottom there, so it doesn't quite cover all of it, but it's enough to should prevent mud getting on your trousers, which is good. The rear door handle is sort of enclosed in the top of the bodywork, which adds to the coupe-ness of the vehicle. But overall, I quite like the design on this one. Now, the back is where the Juke has changed the least, really, between the first and second generations. We have got a lot of creases going on here. It's the whole of the Juke is filled with creases and stuff, makes it quite angular. We have got some shelves here, so the top of the rear lights here sort of flat, so you can put coffee cups on them if you're hanging around with your mates and stuff. This whole big section here sticks out a little bit too much, really. So if I look at it from here, it just looks a little bit strange. It does, however, protect the rear window from getting loads of mud on it, but at least we do have a rear wiper. Not that common in 2024, I find. This whole boot is not electronic, even though this is a top spec model, so you can open that up pretty easily. And this boot is a pretty good size too. And in here, we actually have 422 litres, which is pretty much okay. There's a little bit of space under here, but if you look underneath this second one, there's literally nothing under there. There's a lot of polystyrene and a lot of the tyre repair kits and different things. Now, if we fold these seats down, this gives us 1,305 litres of boot space. And it actually does have a flat floor, which is really good. And you can probably get quite a lot in there, to be honest. If you've driven any recent Nissan products in the last few years, the interior of the latest Nissan Juke is actually going to be quite familiar. This array of buttons here for the infotainment and the infotainment screen, as well as the software that runs it, is going to be very identical to the latest Nissan Qashqai and even the last generation Qashqai too. I reviewed the last generation Nissan Qashqai pretty recently actually. There's a link in the top right hand corner, or the description down below if you want to check that video out. Elsewhere in the interior, this is obviously the N Sport edition, so we have got some yellow bits going on everywhere. This material here reminds me of some sports shoe, like trainers or something. We have got some microfiber material here. It's not actually Alcantara, it looks like sort of microfiber material. And that's quite nice and soft, makes it feel a bit more premium. It's also on this bit here behind the infotainment screen. We've got a lot of it on the seats as well, and also a lot of yellow stitching on the seats and yellow stitching on the centre console. Sadly, no yellow stitching on the steering wheel, unfortunately. This particular Nissan Juke came with Bose speakers in the headrests, which sound quite good. There isn't actually loads to say about the Juke's interior. Everything is where you'd expect it to be. Everything's actually really, really good quality, and there's a lot of physical buttons for everything, which in 2024 is quite unheard of. There's things like an actual array of buttons for the climate control, and all of it works really well. We've got actual knobs with a lot of feedback actually, sort of nice resistance to them. For the temperature, the fan speed, like heated seats, everything else, pretty good to be honest. We've even got a physical button here for the brightness of the displays and for the heated steering wheel. This one does seem to have quite a lot of option extras on it. The N Sport does have the heat pack as standard, which adds a heated windscreen, heated seats, which is 2-stage, as well as a heated steering wheel, which is really nice to see, especially in the winter like it is today. There isn't anything to complain about in here. Nissan have done a really good job with the interior of the new Juke, and it's actually really, really easy to use. We do have a physical shifter in this one because this is the hybrid automatic. You can get the Nissan Juke in a manual version if you want it. And we have got 2 decent sized cup holders. They could do with being a little bit wider potentially. And this one does have the e-pedal mode, which adds like sort of fake regen essentially to the car. That works pretty well. And we have got some drive modes. So we've got sport, standard and eco. I got start button. And also this infotainment screen is really good. It doesn't stick up too far, so it doesn't block your view out the window. It is 12.3 inches and it does have wireless support for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is really nice to see. If you want to use your phone wired or just want to charge your phone, there are 2 USB ports down here, one of which is USB-A or standard USB, and the other one is USB-C, both of which can support data if you need them to. There is also a well thought out wireless phone charging pad too. Now, while the Juke may look like quite a small and petite crossover, there's no compromises in the back seats. The whole bench here is really soft and supportive and quite squidgy, and everything feels quite nice in here. There is 3 seats in the back here too. The only real problem in the back here is the front seats. Now, I don't really have a problem with this, but some people I've heard, when you're in the back of a car and the seats are all one unit, like the Volkswagen Up and other cars that don't have a sliding headrest, this whole section here is massive. Now, the seats themselves don't have a cutout for your knees, which isn't a massive issue because there is quite a lot of legroom really. But this whole massive headrest is really black and shiny, and it blocks a lot of the view out. And if you've got 2 people sat here, it's going to be a little bit restrictive. You might get travel sick. I have heard that some people can get travel sick from a lack of visibility out the front, get motion sickness and stuff. This whole section is really reflective and you can sort of see yourself in the back, which might be a good or bad thing depending on how much you like looking at yourself. That really is the only problem. There's a lot of shiny black plastic in the Juke. Now, the other problem is the roof here does cut into my head a little bit. So if you are sat here, your head does knock on that bit a little bit. But the headroom itself is pretty much okay. The legroom is actually really, really good, which is quite surprising. And sort of the amount of feet room I've got is really good as well. So I can sort of get my feet underneath the driver's seat there. I've got quite a lot of room. The back seats are really comfy. We have got an electronic window here, which is pretty good. No heated seats in the back at all. Again, like the front, we have got 2 USB ports, one of which is USB-C and one is USB-A. There's a little cupboard there for someone's phone. And these seats here do have ISOFIX as well. This middle seat does not fold down in any way, and there's no load-through hatch either. It just is one complete unit. And that's pretty much it. So driving the Juke around this week has actually been quite enjoyable. It's quite a nice little car really, good handling, good amount of power. The engine sounds quite nice when you go a bit faster. It's quite a small little car really, so it is kind of VW Polo size, but a crossover. It's quite surprising how small the Juke is really, and it's quite easy to place on the road and to get into car parks. And because the N Sport, this one comes with a 360-degree camera system, parking it is super easy and you're not going to find any problems with that really. And that generally is my final thought on the Juke. I can't really find any problems with it. It's such a well-rounded car and just quite easy to drive. It returns relatively good fuel economy too. Now, for the last 5 hours of driving, 5.5 hours, I've done 46 mpg. And that is a varied mix of roads. So B roads taking a little bit faster, A roads and motorways and stuff. That's 162 miles. It's done pretty good, to be honest. There was a shorter journey I did the other day, which it returned 56 mpg, and that was just town stuff. So if you are just pootling around town, it's going to get really good mpg, and that's thanks to that hybrid system. We've got that 1.2 kilowatt battery pack, 1.6 litre 3-cylinder engine. If you want a smaller engine, you can go for the manual gearbox or the automatic, which is non-hybrid, and they are a little bit cheaper to buy too. But I think this is a good package really. Now, you can run the Juke in EV only mode if you want to, and there's an EV button down here. At the moment, the engine's actually too cold to do that, but it does work pretty well. And really, I would love to see Nissan make an EV Juke. I think that'd be quite good. The Juke itself is already quite popular, and an electric only version, much like the new Puma Gen E will be quite a good addition to the lineup, really. Now, what's quite surprised me with the Juke is because it is a 3-cylinder, the engine does sound quite nice. So if we knock into sport mode, which is a little button down here, we've got standard, eco and sport. It's also quite powerful. I will put the exact power figures on screen, but it does perform quite well, really. It's got quite a nice exhaust tone and just quite a nice thrummy little 3-cylinder engine. And even for a relatively middle-of-the-road crossover, the Juke handles really well as well. Nice amount of turn-in, the handling's not wallowy at all. The ride is ever so slightly stiff at some times when you're driving, but really, general day-to-day stuff, it's actually quite comfortable. Now, I don't know if you can hear that, that engine sounds quite nice actually. Sounds quite good. Now, at other times, the Juke's engine can be a little bit too loud, so if I try and knock it into EV mode now, no, it's still, that's saying the vehicle speed's too high now. Let's try EV mode. So it says unavailable because sport mode is on, and then EV mode again. There we go. So we're in EV only mode now, and it's really smooth. I think it will activate its engine again about 30 miles an hour, so it's good definitely for around town, and it's only a 1.2 kilowatt battery pack, so it might not get you that far. If you think into EV terms, you generally would expect 4 miles per kilowatt hour. I'm not sure what Nissan quote for the Juke in terms of EV only range. I will put it on screen if I can find it. But just judging on those figures, you might get around 4 to 5 miles maybe in EV only mode. So it's definitely designed for, well, just very short trips really. It is a self-charging hybrid, as much as I really don't like that term because it is sort of disingenuous. It is technically self-charging. So I'll test it now once we go past the cyclist of what speed the Juke will kick itself back into hybrid mode, or just the engine. And now it's complaining the engine is too cold. It's just fired up the engine. It is a little bit too cold really today. It is about 6 degrees today. So yeah, not the best for running the engine in EV only mode. Now what's quite different about this one is when we tested the Qashqai recently, the Qashqai doesn't have a gearbox. It just sort of direct drive, much like what Honda do. Now the Juke does actually have a gearbox. It's a 5 or 6 speed unit from memory. It's a little bit different how it works. It does seem to hold gears a little bit longer than you'd necessarily like, so it does sound a little bit loud in places. But overall, it's actually pretty good. So overall, what do I think of the new Nissan Juke N Sport for 2025? Well, the Nissan Juke is actually a really good and well-rounded vehicle. Anyone who's going to be interested in this vehicle is going to get on really well with it. There's a lot of things to like in here, a lot of physical controls for everything really. This N Sport edition has a lot of cool features. We've got a lot of option extras as well that come as standard, such as the heated windscreen, heated steering wheel, heated seats, as well as the Bose speakers in the headrest, which work quite well. Now, this is going up against the Ford Puma, and what the Ford Puma lacks, this really does add. The Ford Puma has a lot of weird design things going on, like the square steering wheel and other bits and pieces that make it look a little bit weird. What the Ford Puma does have though is an electric version which is going to be out soon, the Puma Gen E. And as of yet, Nissan don't have a Juke electric. I'm hoping they will launch one soon. Now I really do think this second generation looks a lot nicer than the first one. The first one, as I said earlier, was a really weird looking car, and the second generation looks a lot nicer in a lot of different ways. And I really do think the Nissan have really nailed it with this new one. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this one, looking at the new 2025 Nissan Juke. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I've been Alex, and I'll see you again next time.